Jordan Sheridan live on the road. I hope I make sense during this live stream because I'm not feeling wonderful and have a pretty massive headache, which I never ever get, but I have now after being in East Palestine, Ohio, which kind of tells you the story. We were in East Palestine earlier today. Within 2 minutes of entering one resident's home, I started feeling kind of delirious, kind of like, just like a rush to your head, I guess. Kind of hard to kind of think or process your thoughts. And then as the interview went on, we were inside that house probably for an hour and a half. My headache kind of intensified, and I'm not really somebody who ever gets headaches. So clearly there's chemicals and contamination inside East Palestine homes. You hear that from residents. What I experienced, that I'm still experiencing hours later, as John could tell you, have a headache and kind of delirious. Residents are dealing with that on a daily basis. After the first home we went to, and just an incredible interview, we recorded it. We'll post it probably in the next few days. Towards the end of the interview, something happened, which I'll talk about in a little bit. After that interview, we went to another home that is right above Sulphur Run, which is the contaminated creek with all the chemicals from the Norfolk Southern train that they detonated over East Palestine. Just standing outside on the front porch, so we're outside. The smell is so bad, my headache got even worse. And then walking inside the house, I only was inside the house for maybe 30 seconds. It's truly remarkable that the government has allowed people to stay in East Palestine. It's the smell of chemicals is so thick because your literally homes are right above a contaminated creek with toxic chemicals under it. Meanwhile, the EPA, Norfolk Southern, they are, I don't even think the term gaslighting does it justice. They are straight up lying to residents that everything's fine, we're not finding any contamination, and they are leaving residents there to grow sicker and sicker. And when you see our interviews, you will see. But I can attest, just based on how I am feeling, and that is why, not that I want to go out and, be in contamination zones and not feel well and be negatively affected, but it's one thing for me, for example, this was my first time in East Palestine, although Status Coup has gone 5 times. Lewis has been there 5 times. John, who's with me now, has been there several times. It's one thing for me to talk to the residents and tell their stories. It's another thing for me to go and experience it myself. And that's why, on the ground reporting is so important, and being able to fund that is so important. And please, this reporting is expensive. We drove 6 hours to East Palestine. Now we're driving 4.5 to Flint for the 10-year anniversary, which is tomorrow, of that ongoing crisis. And the similarities between Flint and East Palestine are truly, eerily striking to me. But just being in East Palestine and the headache that I had and the headache that I still have several hours later, I'm really not someone who gets headaches, and my head is killing me. And it's from toxic chemicals that they are lying and claiming are nowhere to be found in East Palestine. So we did several interviews. We're going to be posting them as the days go on. One interview we did live yesterday, but we had fairly significant connection issues. Fortunately, John recorded that, so we're going to be able to re-upload that interview over the next few days. But that was with a couple, Ashley and Matt, who their home is so contaminated. They were living in a hotel for over a year, which might sound nice, but it's not. Living in a hotel with your kid, your 2 dogs, and only a microwave. That's not a life. Fortunately, they were able to temporarily, through GoFundMe and people's generosity, afford basically a trailer, like a camper. So they're now living in a trailer with themselves, their 2 dogs, their son, and they are surprisingly happier living in this trailer because at least they're out of East Palestine. Their symptoms are resolved when they're out of East Palestine, but that's not a life either. They don't want to live, in a mobile home. No disrespect to anyone who lives in a mobile home. But they can't get money to permanently move, to permanently relocate, because Norfolk Southern will not pay for residents to permanently relocate. And the government is not forcing Norfolk Southern to do that. And the government, a lot of the focus has been on Norfolk Southern, but the government is complicit here. The EPA has been doing the same thing that the EPA did in Flint, and the same thing that the EPA has done in many places, and that's providing, frankly, nonsense bullshit testing and saying, oh, everything's better, everything's fine. Well, either hundreds, if not thousands of people are all crazy and are all just all at once, accidentally, coincidentally getting rashes, nosebleeds, bloodshot eyes. People I'm talking to are literally pooping blood. People are having seizures. Earlier today, and again, I'm sorry if I'm sounding a little off or delirious. It's because I am delirious. I have a serious headache from East Palestine, and I know Lewis experienced that when he was there. John behind the camera has experienced things. Colin has experienced things. So when I'm asking you for money, we don't just talk the talk, we walk the walk. And frankly, we choose to put ourselves in some situations that are not necessarily the safest. So I hope you see what we're doing and support us in whatever way you can. We really want to grow our paid membership. So if you're not yet a Status Coup member, please, please, please sign up for 16 cents a day. That's all it takes. 16 cents a day comes out to $5 a month. And you could join us at statuscoup.com/join. You could also donate any amount. We got 2 donations today so far. I can't look down and give you a shout out because I'm driving, but I saw 2 donations, both for $50 each. So thank you to whoever did that. But we need you to sign up if you're not yet a member, and we need you to donate if you can. For those who could donate larger amounts, please go ahead and do so. For those that can't, any amount matters. But we were interviewing Stella and Darren, who are a couple. They've lived in East Palestine most of their lives. And that interview was really infuriating, emotional. But then they told me in the beginning, when we got there, that their granddaughter, who's 18, as we were walking in to set up, that their granddaughter was being hooked up. For those of you who might have had this in your life, if you've had these symptoms, her granddaughter, Jenna, her head was being wrapped, almost like a mummy, with electrodes for I believe it was a 3-day EEG test. And what they do is they hook up your head with a very tightly wrapped tape or whatever to monitor your brain waves to test for epilepsy. And they do this for people that are having seizures. Her granddaughter Jenna, 18 years old, was the picture of health. Had no health problems before the Norfolk Southern chemically nuked East Palestine just 14 months ago, a little over a year ago. She started having seizures, crippling headaches, and they haven't stopped. She's gone to doctors, she's gone to hospitals. They are not testing her or other residents we speak to for vinyl chloride and other chemicals that were on that railroad or could have been created as a byproduct of the detonation of those chemicals. They're either not testing them because they don't want to test them for those chemicals, or they're not testing them because they're not equipped. Most like regular doctors and hospitals are not equipped to be testing for like volatile chemicals or compounds. They're not able to. They don't have the equipment or the measure, the whatever equipment or systems are needed to test for that. So she sat down with us, and honestly, it was really heartbreaking. It was really heartbreaking to talk to an 18-year-old girl who's got her whole life in front of her and can barely pay attention in school now. She used to work out. She says she could barely work out. She goes to the gym. She can't do most of the exercises she used to do. She has no social life now because she's just sick all the time. And by the way, for those, contrarians or those who say, well, Jordan, that's one person. You can't, it could just be somebody that for unrelated reasons started having seizures. She's not the only one having seizures in East Palestine. And by the way, we were told that just yesterday, when a resident was at the doctor, they had to wait because 2 people had come in with strokes back to back. This is a small town of a little over 4,000 people. And 2 people came in back to back having strokes. Lewis has reported over the last year about a man who came down with double breast cancer. It is very rare for men to get breast cancer. I can't, of course, I can't definitively say it's from the railroad, it's from the detonation, but vinyl chloride, look it up, has been linked to breast cancer in men and women. Vinyl chloride has been linked to brain cancer. Vinyl chloride has been linked to leukemia. This gentleman, Wayne, he's in Western Pennsylvania because the explosion did not just affect East Palestine. That plume traveled east to Western Pennsylvania. He's had to have a double mastectomy, this gentleman. Other residents, rashes, nosebleeds. I already described the couple who is now living in the trailer outside of East Palestine. He just went back for 2 days. When he left, he was pooping blood. And that's not the first time he was pooping blood. And it only happens when he goes to East Palestine. I mean, residents I talk to, memory issues. They have described, and John, you've heard this, it's almost like they feel drunk in East Palestine. And they're not getting the benefits. They're not actually drinking. They feel like the feeling you would feel if you're drunk. And I didn't feel drunk, but I kind of felt delirious just being inside Stella's home. And for technical reasons, when we were recording, we had to turn off the fan and the air purifier because the noise was too loud and it was going to affect the audio. Well, just turning off the fan and the air purifier, you could feel it. I felt it in real time, my headache getting worse. But I still I still had a headache even with the fan on full blast above us and the air purifier. What I'm describing to you folks is a disaster zone. It's not somewhere that's in recovery of anything. It's a disaster zone. Whether you're inside homes, whether you're outside homes, you smell it. Then we went down to Sulphur Run, which is the contaminated creek. I don't know, John, what were we there? Maybe 2 minutes?
Yeah.
The smell, this is 14 months later. It reeks of chemicals. I don't know if anyone from the EPA watches us. I doubt it. But I truly have to begin to wonder how many sociopaths are in our government. Maybe every one of them. And I know because I've talked to some whistleblowers in the EPA while reporting on Flint. I know that there are good people who work at the EPA. I know there are good people who work at the CDC who want to do the right thing. But for those EPA officials who are telling these residents, these poor people, and when I say poor people, I mean it literally, they're poor economically, but are looking them in the eye and saying, well, our testing shows no contamination. Or some have said, this is psychosomatic. I truly do not know how you sleep at night. I do not know how you sleep at night. Because this is the literal definition of gaslighting. They are literally gaslighting these people. Because there were a lot of chemicals and gases that combusted with that detonation. It's just remarkable to me, and it sounds weird that I'm happy I went there because I'm suffering headaches now. And I don't think she would mind me sharing, but Erin Brockovich got sick there. But I'm so happy I went there because, again, I offered Lewis support when he was there. I've reported on East Palestine. I've broken a few stories. But I was not there in person. Lewis was. And it's just a whole different ball game. Going somewhere and seeing it up close, smelling it literally up close. And I just really worry about the people there. I mean, if people are having these kind of health problems a little over a year later, it does not bode well for what's going to be happening there a year from now, 2 years from now, 5 years from now. And I got to be honest, and residents said this to me, and I share the same opinion. I was very surprised when I read a headline that Norfolk Southern already settled for $600 million, a giant class action lawsuit. Which, by the way, I don't want anyone to get it twisted. And please smash the like button, share this live stream. The more people that press the like button, the more people that will see this. Please share the live stream. I'm driving, so if you're donating, I cannot look down on my phone to thank you, but Colin, if you're seeing donations come in, please text John and he'll let me know so I can thank people. If you send in super chats, John will try to monitor it while holding the camera.
We got $50 from Double K.
Thank you, Double K, for the $50 super chat. I really appreciate that. Don't get it twisted that a $600 million settlement is at all adequate. Because whenever you see these settlements, you have to just cut that number by a third. Because at least 40% is going to be going to lawyers and legal fees. So then residents are left with, I don't know, maybe $350 to $400 million. And that's for a 20-mile radius. So it's not quite clear how many people are part of that. It's not clear how many people are going to be owed money and what each person is going to get. Is it going to be individuals who get money or per household and family? So residents could be really looking at, if they're lucky, $5,000 to $10,000, which if you get cancer or a really serious illness, that's not going to do you much. As part of this settlement, residents are not getting Medicare for all or any type of universal health care. So do not think that $600 million is some victory. It's not at all. But I was telling the residents that, tomorrow is the 10-year anniversary. And I don't even like the term anniversary because it makes it sound like it's something from the past. Flint is still a crisis. It's not something from the past. The actual anniversary on April 25th, 2014, the city officially switched its water source to the Flint River, and that's when the poisoning began. And that's what my book coming out this summer is about. It's called We the Poisoned. The link to pre-order it, if you haven't pre-ordered it yet, you could find the link in the description under this live stream. So this is the 10-year anniversary of the water crisis, but the similarities between Flint and East Palestine are so striking to me. And like I told the people I interviewed, other than the original spark that caused Flint's poisoning and East Palestine's poisoning, which are obviously different, the actual sequence of events after that is very, very similar, where you have city government, state government, federal government all telling residents, don't believe your brown water. Don't believe the rashes on your skin. Don't believe your hair falling out. That's Flint. In East Palestine, don't believe your rashes. Don't believe your nosebleeds. Don't believe your pooping blood. Don't believe your seizures. Don't believe all this. Everything's fine. Sound familiar? Flint. They literally manipulated the testing. The state of Michigan manipulated the testing in the first year or two after the water switch. They threw out some of the high tests for lead. Officials were charged with manipulating water testing. In East Palestine, Lewis broke, that Norfolk Southern was also, through its contractors, who are known as a company that basically falsifies data, they were falsifying data in East Palestine. I mean, it's very, very similar. And I have a feeling that Norfolk Southern settled so soon, and it is fairly soon. I mean, if you talk to Erin Brockovich, if you talk to people who have been involved with other communities that have been contaminated and poisoned, it often could take you a decade to get any money or any court settlement. They got it in a year, which tells me Norfolk Southern is trying to settle for as little as possible before there is, sadly, I hate to say it, but before there is a major surge in cancer in the area, before there's a major surge in deaths. Because once that happens, that bill goes way higher. And I just, it's so striking to me, and I don't really want to get in politics. I'm too tired, and I have a headache, so I don't want to get into Ukraine and Israel and all that stuff. Obviously, we know while we're on the road, the major story is all these protests going on college campuses and the corporate media propaganda that it's, anti-Semitic students, which it's not. There might be isolated, very few incidents of that, but by and large, as John has covered at Columbia for us, these are peaceful students protesting in support and to stop a genocide.
Majority of them are Jewish too.
And a majority of them at Columbia happen to be Jewish. But it's so striking to me that on our way in, when we drove into East Palestine this morning, I put on the radio and I heard President Biden speaking about signing the bill for $95 billion to Ukraine and Israel and humanitarian aid to Gaza and Taiwan. And I don't even want to get into those separate issues, because whether you support that or you don't, I don't. Within that, I support sending money to Palestinians. I support humanitarian aid to Ukrainians, not weapons, to continue the war. But it's just truly sickening when you're standing in front of an 18-year-old wrapped like a mummy whose life has been destroyed and is having seizures because a fucking multi-billion-dollar company intentionally and unnecessarily chemically nuked this town because they probably said, fuck it. These are poor people in flyover country. Let's just blow up the trains so we can open up the track sooner and not lose money, because it's about the money, Lebowski. It's sickening when you see these people suffering in East Palestine and Flint and Kalamazoo. And for the government and Norfolk Southern, it would be just a decimal point on their balance sheet. It would be pennies on the dollar. Totally insignificant money for Norfolk Southern or the government to pay for their health care, to pay for those who want to move. Just buy them out and relocate them in Flint and East Palestine and so many other places. It would be cheap compared to, snap your finger, we have $95 billion we could send to every other country on the globe. And that's just today. How much more money are we? I think we've sent to Israel over the last 20 years something like almost $400 billion. The government and the corporations can move these people yesterday. They could have moved them immediately. They could pay off their homes. They could provide universal health care, mental health services, because it's not just the physical trauma. These people are dealing with depression and anxiety and PTSD. But they won't do it. And you want to know why they won't do that? Because if they do it for the people of Flint or they do it for the people of East Palestine, they are opening up the floodgates for everywhere else in America. Because there's a lot of other Flint, Michigans out there. Not the same thing, but there's a lot of other communities that have environmental contamination. There's a lot of other communities that are Superfund sites. There's a lot of other communities that have had mining issues, fracking issues, plastics. I mean, hell, we just covered in Piqua, Ohio. They're burning lithium batteries out in the open, which is very, very hazardous to human health. They do not want to provide for the people, whether it's housing, relocation, healthcare, mental health services, you name it, because they know if they set the precedent to do it once, they're setting the precedent to do it for everyone, and they will not do that, and that's what this is all about. And for those of you who started watching me when I was at the Young Turks, or those of you who have been with me on this ride, literally this ride, at Status Coup, from day one, and some of you have, I have repeatedly said over and over, I'm a broken record. When I'm in Flint, I say this is not just about Flint. And don't think it's only about Flint. The reason I stayed on Flint is because if they get away with it in Flint, that is the playbook they are going to use everywhere else. And I hate to say I told you so, but I told you so. Because they are using the same exact playbook to a T. They're using the same exact playbook that they used in Flint on East Palestine. I could not believe it. And John is my witness. Do you know that residents shared with me today text messages, which when we get downtime, I'll post them, where an EPA official, a top-ranking EPA official, is telling residents, oh yeah, I sent my crew there today to test. Everything's fine. The resident asked, what equipment did you use to test? The EPA official said, oh, we just used our noses. The EPA is telling people in East Palestine that everything's okay because we don't smell it. Am I in the Twilight Zone? First of all, why would the residents of East Palestine or Flint or anywhere, and I'm not a conspiracy theorist, I'm not saying never, ever, ever, under any circumstances, trust the government, that they lie about everything. That's not what I'm saying. But why would they trust the EPA officials on the ground, to be honest, whether they smell something or not? And we have already broken several stories where EPA officials, when they did not know they were being recorded, admitted, yeah, no, this was not a controlled burn. This was an open detonation, which is against EPA regulations. I could go on. Tell me what people are saying.
Somebody from EPA, East Palestine was mentioning 4 Mavic trucks on the train. That's how they found out about the batteries being burned. That's how they found Piquia. Ashley mentioned that.
Yeah, so what that person's talking about is there were, I believe, 4 Ford trucks on Norfolk Southern's train that blew up, or that they detonated. And those 4 trucks were electric trucks, and they had lithium batteries. And a lot of the symptoms that residents are having are aligned with the burning of lithium batteries. The EPA has never even acknowledged, well, they've acknowledged the trucks were on there, but they have not acknowledged that the burning of lithium batteries can cause health problems. And if you want more information on that, just Google Piqua, Piqua. I believe it's south of Toledo. It's in western Ohio. And companies have been burning electric car batteries there, lithium batteries, causing health problems in the community. But it's just remarkable to me, and I'm grateful that I was able to go. I'm not going to lie, next time I come, I don't care how it makes me look. And if I want to stay married, I'm probably going to have to wear, because my wife's not happy with me, I'm probably going to wear a full face respirator. Because I got a headache just from 2 houses. And I still have a headache, and we left, 2-3 hours ago?
Yeah.
So, it's not safe there. It is not safe to live in East Palestine. I don't even think that's an opinion at this point. I think it's a fact. And I always, no matter what, wherever I go, whether it's Flint, East Palestine, Kalamazoo, anywhere I go, this is why, unlike the rest of the bought-off, corrupt media, I don't first say, hey, let me find a politician to interview. I don't first say, hey, let me find a expert. Because a lot of experts, check who's funding them. You find out where the bodies are buried. You find out the truth from speaking with people who live in these places, from speaking with people who do not have fancy titles, from speaking with people who are activists, from speaking with people who were never involved with politics before and just want to live and be happy and protect their kids. And that's where you get the truth. And it does not take you a long time if you go to East Palestine to find out there is a lot of people who, before February 3rd, 2023, sure, everybody has whatever issues. Some people have like minor health things. But for the most part, people were healthy. And since then, you have all of these people having the same exact symptoms. That's not coming from it's not coming from, what did you say yesterday it's not coming from the planets or astrology. It's coming from fucking cancerous, carcinogenic chemicals.
Robert Hughes, $2 super chat. What do you think about Summer Lee and APAC?
Robert, do you not notice that I'm on a particular topic and you're asking me about Summer Lee and APAC? No, I'm kidding. Honestly, I've been too busy to pay attention to that. I know Summer Lee won her primary. I also know that APAC did not put money in to challenge her, which I think tells you that APAC knew that its propaganda and all of its money was not going to take Summer Lee out because she's fairly popular in her district, and she's been fairly progressive. And for the most part, I think that area of Pittsburgh and the surrounding areas of Pittsburgh don't buy into the pro-Israel propaganda. So that's what I think.
Okay. So Double K made two $50 donations, so $100 total from Double K.
Thank you, Double K.
One comment was Love Colin. Teresa 273, $25.
Thank you, Teresa.
Michael Cooper, YouTube member for 8 months. Thank you for staying on the story, even with all the insanity in the world.
It's a lot of insanity, and it's tough sometimes because no matter when we go on the road, it's never a good time. There always seems to be something else breaking that's major. Right now, it's kind of hard to break through when all the focus of the media and social media is on between Trump's trial for paying off the porn star, all the protests happening on college campuses, obviously Israel's continued genocide of Gaza, and some of those things I believe should be covered heavily. But it's hard when you're trying to keep the focus on stories that happened a year ago or 10 years ago in the case of Flint. It's hard to break through because people kind of become numb. And people don't realize, even Stella, who we were interviewing today, an East Palestine resident, she said, I thought Flint was fixed because I never saw it talked about anymore. How many people think these communities are fixed or the government helped the people because they just don't hear about it in the news anymore? I mean, the same could be said for Love Canal. How many people just probably assumed that was fixed? And that's from decades ago. There's very little media that exists that doesn't just go in and cover things once when the explosions are big, right? Or in the case of Flint, when the lines are, for blocks of cars waiting for bottled water. As far as I know, we're the only outlet that really stays on these stories over and over and over again. And it doesn't make us a lot of money, folks. It does not. Covering these stories, after the fact, years later, does not make us a lot of money. But I guess I'm just old-fashioned and maybe naive. I just hope and pray that enough people value it, that they're willing to pay $5 a month, or for others that join us at $10 a month, or for others that join us at $20 a month, or for others that sign up as annual members. You could sign up as a paying member at StatusCoup.com/join. I mean, that's truly the main way that we're able to do this. Frankly, finances have been pretty tight recently because we spent a lot of money between trips to East Palestine, trips to Flint, trips to West Virginia, the documentary that we are producing for the 10-year anniversary of the water crisis that we are actually premiering tomorrow night in Flint. We're going to premiere our documentary. It's called Flint Fatigue, tomorrow night in Flint for residents at the People's Church. So if you're in Flint or nearby, 8 o'clock tomorrow night at the People's Church. The address and details are on my Twitter. We emailed out earlier today as well on our Substack, the details. And then for everybody else, we're going to be premiering it online Sunday on Breaking Point's YouTube channel. Also on our website, flintfatigue.com. And by the way, as extra incentive to sign up as a paying member to Status Coup, and again, 16 cents a day. There's very few of you, not to call you out, but there's very few of you who don't have 16 cents a day. That would equal $5 a month. I know for most of you, you could scrounge up 16 cents a day. If even that is too much, if even $5 a month is too much, then no judgment. I get it. But for those that think about it, I'm asking you at the minimum, what is actual living, breathing, real, on the ground journalism worth? And by the way, why it's so valuable to be on the ground, I'm not going to mention it yet, but I got a tip from a resident earlier on a major story when it comes to East Palestine that if I could nail it down, I believe would put this back into the national spotlight. And I don't think I would have got that tip unless I came here. Just like in Flint, many of the stories I broke were because I kept going back there and I kept building relationships and I kept building sources. So I really hope if you can sign up. There's a lot of outlets that send you fundraising emails and beg you for money, but if you really look at what they're doing, you know, no disrespect to any of them, but they're not out here, you know, breaking their backs, literally breaking their backs to cover things that no one else is. So if you can, sign up, statuscoup.com/join. If you're already a member, you could donate. It makes a huge, huge difference when we see people donating to help us with the cost of gas, food, hotels, flights, rent a car. We drove this time, so we didn't have to fly. But we're driving 10 hours there and back to save money on flights and rent-a-cars. So I think we're walking the walk. Yeah. But let me shift to the Flint topic for a little bit.
Did you want to read donations?
Yeah.
All right, $50 from Nancy.
Nancy, thank you.
Thank you for keeping us informed. The more people know, hopefully with your reporting, we can fix this. $50 from
Dakota, thank you.
$25 from Thomas. Y'all are the best.
Thank you, Thomas. Thank you. It makes a huge difference when we get donations, when we see member signups. Makes a big, big difference, and it helps us kind of offset the costs for this reporting. So we're on our way to Flint. I just can't believe it at this point. It's crazy. I mean, this is going to be my 21st time in Flint, Michigan. I might as well just get a house. So tomorrow is the 10-year anniversary of the Flint River Switch. There will be a march at noon Eastern, so we will be live covering that march. I'm pretty sure there's going to be speeches too. So that's at noon Eastern. We will be covering that live. I believe there's other events later in the day. And then at 8 o'clock, we're going to be premiering in Flint our documentary. That will be an in-person event, so we're not going to be live streaming that. But we'll certainly be live for the march tomorrow in Flint. We'll certainly be interviewing residents. If other things come up as the day goes on, we'll cover it. And, I think that it's really hard when you've been somewhere 21 times. It's really hard when you've covered a story for 8 years. It's really hard to say something new on the topic. It's really hard to keep it in the news or keep pushing that message on why it's important. But I guess the best way I could say it, I keep hearing about, there's two terms that I want to talk about. I keep hearing about democracy. Have you heard a lot about democracy lately? Have you been getting fundraising emails from the Democratic Party, the DNC, think tanks, media outlets about how our democracy is at risk? I don't know what your definition of democracy is, but here is mine. If you live in a country that is a so-called democracy, if you pay taxes, if you obey the law, even though a lot of those laws are unjust, if you contribute to society, if you're an upstanding citizen in terms of not causing trouble, paying your taxes, obeying the law, shouldn't the politicians that we're told are public servants, if you are harmed by those politicians, whether they harm you unintentionally or whether it's intentional. And I believe, based on 8 years of reporting, I believe it was intentional what happened in Flint. And I think when you read my book this summer, you're going to believe it too. Because there's a lot in that book. Again, it's called We the Poisoned, exposing the Flint-Water crisis cover-up and the poisoning of 100,000 Americans. And the pre-order link is under the live stream in the description. And I will be back in Flint when the book is out, hopefully to do book events. But how can you honestly say we live in a democracy if 10 years after 100,000 Americans, poor black people, poor white people, poor Hispanics, undocumented immigrants, because there were undocumented people in Flint as well. How can you honestly say that this is a democracy if a whole city was poisoned and they do not have free health care? Not one person has been held criminally accountable. Their water is still contaminated. And I don't give a shit what the EPA says. And I don't give a shit what the city of Flint says. And I don't give a shit what the state of Michigan says. I talk to the residents. The water is still contaminated. There are people in Flint that still get rashes from the water. I just spoke with a mother a few weeks ago whose daughter, 10 years later when she showers, gets rashes from that water. I speak with residents whose eyes burn when they shower. People still lose hair in that water. How can you call that a democracy? How can you call it a democracy when 10 years later, Flint, and you will find this out in the documentary we're releasing, Flint has astronomical cancer rates right now. And it ain't from the weather. It's from the water. How can you say that that's a democracy when people are getting cancer in January, dying in April, and the government did not provide these people universal health care? Libby, Montana got universal health care. Libby, Montana, I believe in the 2000s, had an asbestos disaster. And as part of Obamacare, the senator representing Montana, I think his name, Max Baucus, he said to Obama, I'll give you my vote if you give my people universal health care. And you know what? He was right to do it. And I am not against those people having universal health care. But why the hell don't the people of Flint, Michigan have it? Why don't the people in East Palestine have it? I mean, we should all have it. Don't get me wrong. You know what I think about universal health care. But how do you call this a democracy? You poison a whole community and you don't hold anyone accountable criminally. No one has even faced trial and no one is going to. There was a massive cover-up. In my opinion, the biggest government cover-up in the 21st century. That's not a democracy. That is a corporate oligarchy. Because what a lot of people don't know, because the media never told the story of Flint accurately, Flint was not, as most media have reported it, some tragedy born of trying to save money. Flint became a crisis because people were trying to make money. Not save money, make money. You will find this out in my book. This was a privatization scheme on steroids that went horribly, horribly wrong. But don't tell me we live in a democracy when Flint can be poisoned and a decade later I talk to residents who say it's just as bad now as it was 8 years ago. Another word I want to talk about, and keep those donations coming, And please, for the love of God, sign up as a Status Coup member. 16 cents a day. 16 cents a day equals $5 a month. That's all I'm asking. $5 a month. And Colin, let us know, send to John if we get any member signups. There's another term I want to throw out there. I want to throw out the term genocide, because it's being talked about a lot in terms of, at this point, 34,000 Palestinians have been killed. I believe that number is probably an undercount, because there's probably a lot of dead Palestinians that have not been retrieved from the rubble of those bombs that the U.S. government has been paying for, of those Israeli missiles that the U.S. government has been paying for. You know, when we think of genocide, which I believe what's going on in Gaza is a genocide. When we think of genocide, I think we think of something acute, something very immediate. And I'm not minimizing whatsoever what's going on in Gaza, because it's horrible. But I also believe that there are genocides that are slower moving, more systematic, over time. And I believe Flint is a genocide. And I believe East Palestine is a genocide. And the only reason it's not called that or covered as that is because you don't see the bodies piling up right away. But I believe, and I have seen it myself, and I've talked to enough residents to know, in Flint, Michigan, I saw this when I was there knocking on doors 5 years ago, and I see it now, and I hear it now from residents. People are dying rapidly in Flint, Michigan, of cancer, of kidney disease, of kidney failure, of liver failure, multiple melanoma or myeloma, other illnesses, and it's because of the toxic water that destroyed their organs. And not all people's organs are built the same, and not everyone's immune system is built the same, and for some people, you get sick and die quicker. And for some people, it happens 5 years later. And for some people, it happens 8 years later. And for some people, it happens 10 years later. And for some people, it'll happen 20 years later. But there are people dying in Flint all the time. And you will see in the documentary, and again, that will be released on Sunday for everyone online. And tomorrow night in Flint at the People's Church at 8 o'clock Eastern. You have people telling us that every day they're hearing about more people dying in Flint of cancer. To me, that is a genocide. It is happening slower, but it's still happening. And it's happening at the hands of the U.S. government. Do you know that the EPA, the Environmental Protection Agency, 10 years later, still declines to acknowledge fault or guilt in the Flint-Water cover-up and the Flint-Water crisis? They still, to this day, deny complicity. And they still, to this day, have not settled financially with the people of Flint. The EPA. They didn't under Obama, they didn't under Trump, and they're still not under Biden. The EPA will not admit guilt or complicity, and they have not financially settled. Do you know that Veolia, I believe, multi-billion-dollar global corporation that is known as one of the biggest corporate privatizers around the world. They're involved with privatized water and many other things. And they were involved in the Flint-Water crisis and cover-up. To this day, they have not fully settled with the citizens of Flint. The state of Michigan settled for $600 million which is not enough. And the residents of Flint have still not seen the money. I don't want to hear from highly overpaid news anchors on CNN and MSNBC about democracy. Because they don't have a fucking clue what's really going on out there. And I don't want to hear, frankly, to be honest with you, I'm tired of hearing from a lot of independent outlets about, oh, please give us money. We need you to sign up for our Patreons, and we need you to send in money so we could cover what everyone else is covering, only slightly edgier. Are they covering Flint? Are they covering East Palestine? No. Half the time, I can't even get them to share our work, much less cover it. And that's been going on for 8 years of covering Flint, that it's almost impossible half the time to get other independent media to give a damn, because they're so caught up in their hot takes and reactionary bullshit to get clicks. But I think you're going to see tomorrow that this is not some tragedy from the past. This is an ongoing crisis. It's a disaster. John and I were just there a month ago shooting the footage for the documentary. Did that feel like it was something from the past? Or did it seem like, oh shit, this is still a big fucking thing?
It's real time. And Flint, East Palestine, these are generational crises. You know, these are going to be years from now affecting the kids, their children. It will go on for years.
I hate to say it, but you know, it's what they call a lost generation. And the truth is, and I hear it sometimes from other communities, Jordan, what about XYZ community? It's not just Flint. I hear you. I hear you. And I wish I had a broom. And I wish I had magical powers. And I wish I was an octopus with multiple tentacles. And I wish I had I wish I had unlimited funding to hire a whole staff and send them out everywhere to lift up stories in other communities. Because I get the emails and I get the messages, and I know there's a lot of problems in a lot of places, and I know there's a lot of water issues in other places. I know there's a lot of air contamination. I know about the paper mills in Kalamazoo. I know about the fracking waste in other places. I know about the mining contamination. We were just down in West Virginia a few weeks ago. The water's toxic there too from coal mining. I wish I can cover it all, but I'm just one person and I'm only human, and I'm not trying to dig myself an early grave. But all I could say is, you know, whether this happened 10 days ago or 10 years ago, I hope those of you watching understand this involves you too, whether you live in Flint or you don't. This involves you too, whether you live in East Palestine or you don't. Because it's like the mass shootings. You really don't think that would never happen here. And then it happens where you live. This stuff could happen anywhere. And it doesn't have to be, it might not be water related when it happens to you. It might not be a train exploding over your town. It might be something different. But all of these things and all of these stories, although the original spark that caused the poisoning are different, after that, they're pretty much all the same. It's the same exact playbook. It's the government, the federal agencies that are supposedly there to regulate and protect the environment and public health. They are there to sweep it under the rug. They are there to prop up the companies. They are there to tell the residents everything's okay. They're there to tell you, oh, our testing shows everything's fine. And they are there to shift the narrative from crisis to recovery. even when it's still a disaster, to try and make it disappear. Frankly, they just did this with COVID. I know a lot of people have different feelings about COVID, and it's a very, controversial topic for some. But the facts are the facts. The CDC and the states just stopped counting. They just stopped counting hospitalizations with COVID. They just stopped counting the cases. They just said, hey, it's like the flu. And just basically normalized mass death and disability. We just saw that happen literally within the last 4 years. Who the fuck knows what the long-term damage is? Forget COVID. If you got the flu 3 or 4 times a year, that's not good for your long-term health. I don't care if you're an anti-vaxxer. I don't care what you are. Getting the flu or anything 3-4 times a year is not good for your long-term health. There is no one who can tell me that's okay for your long-term health. We have a sociopathic government because our government is no longer a government of and by the people. We literally have a government that is a multi-trillion-dollar boondoggle. Our government is a multi-trillion-dollar legalized bribery system. Hell, the people of Flint, if you're watching, weren't you excited when a Democrat won governor in 2018? Finally, we got rid of Rick Snyder, who covered up our poisoning, and a Democrat saying she's going to bring justice to Flint. Well, how's that working out for you? Governor Gretchen Whitmer, what has she done for Flint? She's too busy preparing for her presidential run in 2028. Republicans, Democrats, are they different in some areas? Yes. But on the areas that matter the most, life and death, your health, there is no red or blue in America when it comes to those things. There's green. When it comes to your health, when it comes to life or death, the only color that matters is green in this country. And I didn't know that when I was younger. And I didn't know that when I was in my younger 20s, when I was kind of naive like a lot of people. And I was like, Republicans bad, Democrats good. And then I kind of got out there and saw this fucking hellscape that we're living in. But there's something really, really terminally sick within our culture, within our society, and within our representative democracy. If a place like Flint 10 years later can still be begging for clean water, and they are literally in the Great Lakes region with some of the cleanest, most pure, most glacial water on Earth. Do you know the Great Lakes provides 20% of the Earth's fresh water? 20% come from the Great Lakes area, which includes the Flint area. And they can't get clean water in Flint, Michigan. Did I miss anybody?
Colin, if you hear me, send another email with the new super chats.
So before that, while we're waiting, I'll just say one more time. We're getting to Flint in a little bit. Then we're both collapsing because we're fucking exhausted. We drove 6 hours to East Palestine. We did 3 interviews in less than 12 hours, I think. Then we drove 4.5 hours to Flint, which we're doing right now. And then, fingers crossed, Ty is putting the finishing touches on our documentary. and we'll be premiering that tomorrow in Flint, tomorrow night. We'll be live around noon Eastern tomorrow for the March of Flint residents on the 10-year anniversary. I hope you'll watch that at noon Eastern tomorrow. Or if you can't watch it at noon, I hope you'll watch it later when you can. And then we're going to be premiering our documentary, which I'm really looking forward to, because I always want the people of Flint to be able to get the truth about what was done to them. And that's been the frustrating part. There's a lot of frustrating parts about this job. One of them is YouTube. But one of the things that has frustrated me the most in covering Flint for the last 8 years is knowing that despite all my efforts, and I've worked hard at this, I would say 75-80% of Flint residents don't know the full details of what was done to them and the cover-up. Because even after I broke the story, the rest of the media didn't pick it up. So therefore, they didn't see it. So, people can't act if they do not know. People cannot act on their behalf. They can't become active if they don't know the details of what was done to them. And it's really sad when, even when you break a big story, and I've broken stuff on Flint in The Guardian and Vice and The Intercept and the Detroit Metro Times, and the Michigan media will not pick it up. They will not report on it. They will not share it. Just for this 10-year anniversary, I pitched stories to the Detroit Free Press, to the Detroit News, to a lot of different Michigan outlets with new information that no one else has. Pretty significant information. None of them would cover it.
All right, $10 from Mindy Mitchell.
Thank you, Mindy. Thank you.
Endenbridge, line 5, falling apart. Thank you, Jordan and team. AS $10. There's a pattern going on here. Remember the poisoning of Love Canal in the 80s?
Yep.
Lehana wildfires, Flint, East Palestine, Kalamazoo. Something to think about, Jordan.
You call it pattern, I call it the playbook.
Yeah.
Remember, for you guys, and I sound like a broken record, and I'm like that annoying father who keeps saying the same thing to their kid. I have said repeatedly, the reason I keep covering Flint is if they get away with it here, that gives others the exact playbook how to get away with it in other places. And they are using the same playbook they used in Flint in East Palestine and many, many other places. And that playbook is, we'll do some bullshit testing. We'll manipulate the data if we have to. We'll say our testing shows everything's fine, no contamination. Your water's fine, your air's fine, your soil's fine. We'll gaslight the residents. We'll say they're crazy. We'll throw millions of dollars into public relations and marketing to say, the government's making Flint right, or Norfolk Southern's making it right in East Palestine. We'll reach out to friendly media allies that will regurgitate our paid propaganda to make it seem like the situation's improving. We'll give millions of dollars to the Chamber of Commerce. We'll give millions of dollars to build a park. We'll give millions of dollars to foundations, but that money doesn't actually get to the residents who need it. And then we're done. Crisis resolved, right? Sound familiar, Flint? Sound familiar, East Palestine? Kalamazoo? East Chicago, Indiana? Cape Fear, North Carolina? Love Canal? I mean, I could go on. BP Gulf spill?
So Mindy Mitchell gave a total of $30.
Thank you, Mindy.
K Variable subscribed to Prime on Twitch.
Thank you. I don't know what that means, but it sounds good.
That's pretty much it.
All right, before we go, one more pitch to you and yours. If you are not yet a Status Coup member, no. If you're not yet a Status Coup member, I'm just asking you from the bottom of my broken heart, please sign up. Pretty pleased with a cherry on tap. All it takes is $5 a month, and if you break $5 down, it comes out to 16 cents a day. I think for the overwhelming majority, I don't want to generalize, but I think for the overwhelming majority, they do have 16 cents a day. Or think about what you might spend 16 cents a day or $5 a month on elsewhere. And do you really need to be spending it there when it would be better suited here? Because I'm not against you canceling, one day's grande latte at Starbucks. It's not even that good coffee, to be honest. Even though I support, unionized Starbucks workers, your coffee, So, please, 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 that is the only way we could keep doing this. And I know I sound like a broken record, but truthfully, it's getting a lot harder to sustain this kind of work. I had to make cuts, unfortunately. We had to cut Tina, cut Ron, and I love Tina and Ron, but I couldn't afford to pay them anymore. We've had to cut other costs that you don't know, like behind-the-scenes costs. And soon we'll have to go on less reporting trips because it's just too much money and we can't afford it. Since we have managed to do it so consistently, maybe you just kind of get used to it and don't realize how much these trips cost. And also, it's not just, we don't want to just break even. I'd like to make some money so we could hire more people. As John could tell you, we fucking need more bodies. As Colin could tell you, we need more bodies. We need more help on the technical side. We need more help on the reporting side. There's only so long that 2 or 3 people can do the job that normally you'd have 10 people do. So please, 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 if you can, sign up. And if you're already a member, please spread the word. Please urge other people to sign up. It doesn't matter if you're a lefty. It doesn't matter if you're a right-winger. It doesn't matter if you're libertarian. It doesn't matter it doesn't matter what you are politically. We all should care about communities being poisoned by their government. We all should care about government corruption. It's not a red or a blue issue. We're not red or blue media.
We got $5 from Fiona. Bringing attention to the poisoned and ignored. You do amazing work.
Thank you, Fiona. All right, I don't have that much energy, and I got to stop soon to pee. Thank you for watching. Again, we're going to be live tomorrow for the 10-year anniversary of the water crisis, so please watch that. That'll be live tomorrow at noon Eastern, live on the channel. And our documentary will premiere tomorrow night in Flint, Michigan, at the People's Church at 8 o'clock Eastern. So if you're in Flint, I don't know the address, but it's up on the internet and on my Twitter. People's Church, 8 o'clock. We're premiering Flint Fatigue, and then we'll be premiering Flint Fatigue for everybody else Sunday. Just to shoot and produce the documentary, it's cost us about $5,000. If that's any more incentive for you to support us. Thank you for watching. We'll see you tomorrow.